Welcome to my latest 2023 NFL preview. Today I am breaking down the New York Giants, and here's how my previews work. I start off with 3 things I like about the Giants, followed up by 3 things I don't like. Then I go over to yearly win total odds, break down the schedule, and I give my betting recommendation at the very end. Let's kick this off with 3 things I like about the New York Giants. First thing I like about the Giants is their offensive line led by second-team All-Pro Andrew Thomas. I'm not saying the Giants offensive line is elite, but for the first time in a while, it's not a weak spot. Going into 2023, the Giants offensive line will be a strength of this team. Like Andrew Thomas, Evan Neal had an up and down rookie season, but has a world of potential and will have a much better year too. The only change on this offensive line from last year will be the addition of rookie John Michael Schmitz, and this could be an upgrade. I really like the former Golden Gopher, and while a true rookie, I do believe he'll be just fine on the offensive line. It's not just their starters, but they have some excellent depth on this line as well. Again, I'm not saying this offensive line is elite, but for the first time, the offensive line is not a weak spot of the G-Men. Second thing I like about the Giants is their front 7. It starts with Dexter Lawrence, who received a massive contract this offseason. You pair him with Leonard Williams, and you have 2 monsters up front. On the outside, you have Kayvon Thibodeau and Azeez Ojulari. Ojulari is 23, and Thibodeau turns 23 in December. Even though he only played in 7 games, he was second on the team with 5.5 sacks, and coming into year 3, Ojulari is poised for a breakout season. Thibodeau was injured in preseason, but he got much better as the season went on. Kayvon has no ceiling, and considering how young this duo is with the monsters that have inside, you have the makings of something very special. But the Giants also topped into Bobby Ozurike via free agency. He had 151 tackles, which was 10th in the NFL last year. His speed and athleticism will be a nice upgrade to an already talented front 7. Overall, you have young players ascending in Ozurike in free agency. Wink Martindale, some very nice toys to play with in 2023. Speaking of Wink, that is the third thing I like about the Giants is their coaching staff. First year head coach Brian Daboll won NFL Coach of the Year. The Giants had 5 consecutive double-digit losing seasons before last year. He brought in coordinators Wink Martindale and Mike Kafka, who are excellent contrasts to each other. Martindale's a longtime defensive coordinator who spent a lot of time in Baltimore, and Mike Kafka was a Kansas City Chiefs quarterbacks coach before coming over as offensive coordinator for the first time. While in Kansas City, Mike Kafka has been known as somebody who's going to be a future head coach in 2024. Don't be surprised if Mike Kafka ends up being a head coach somewhere else. You pair these two with first-time head coach Brian Daboll, and you have something exceptional. To recap the 3 things I like about the Giants, I like the offensive line, the front 7, and their coaching staff. Before I go over the 3 things I don't like, make sure you smash that like button. And if this is your first time here, hit the subscribe button. It really helps me out when you actually subscribe to the channel. Now, 3 things I don't like about the New York Giants. First thing I don't like about the Giants is their wide receivers. Saquon Barkley and Richie James tied for the lead with 57 receptions each last year, but Barkley plays running back and James plays in Kansas City. They brought in Paris Campbell via free agency, plus Sterling Shepard returns from injury, but neither is a true number 1 wide receiver. Jalen Hyatt is one of my draft crushes and an absolute steal in round 3. He will have to contribute big time for this receiving unit to be a threat. Darren Waller does play tight end, but in reality is just a big wide receiver. He hasn't played that much over the last 2 years. He's in fact been injured almost as much as he played. If healthy, he's an excellent number 1 option, but something he hasn't been able to do the last couple seasons, but he will be Daniel Jones' main target if he's healthy. Speaking of Daniel Jones, that's the second thing that I don't like about the Giants, and that is I'm not sold on Daniel Jones. I'm pulling for Daniel Jones, but I'm not sold on him. He's never going to be Patrick Mahomes, Joe Burrow, or Josh Allen, but Jones' 708 rushing yards and 7 rushing touchdowns is very similar to Josh Allen's 762 yards rushing and 7 rushing touchdowns. But the thing is, Josh Allen threw for 4,283 yards last year. Daniel Jones only threw for 3,205. Averaging 200 yards passing a game in 2023 just doesn't cut it. He threw for over 300 yards only twice last season, and he lost both of those games. Again, I'm pulling for Daniel Jones. I like Daniel Jones. I'm just not sold sold on it. The third thing I don't like about the Giants is that they play in the brutal NFC East. The Eagles and Cowboys, the Cowboys previews tomorrow by the way, are legitimate Super Bowl contenders. I'm not sure about the Giants. In another division, this could easily be a 10-win team, but getting 9 wins again in 2023 is going to be tough. To recap the 3 things I don't like about the Giants, I don't like their wide receiving core. I'm not sold on Daniel Jones yet, and they are in the tough NFC East. Now let's go over the yearly win total odds and break down the Giants schedule. The magic number for the Giants is 7.5 wins. If you don't know what I'm referring to, check out my yearly win total odds tutorial video. DraftKings right now has over 7.5 at even money, so let's take a look at the schedule and see if we can get to 8 wins. This schedule is brutal. The first 6 games of the season, 5 are against playoff opponents from 2022, and 4 out of those first 6 games are on the road. After that, you get Washington and a quote-unquote home game against the Jets. Then you get 3 straight road games before you host the Patriots week 12. I do love the late season bye and hosting the final 2 games of the season, but the playoffs might be long gone by then. Out of the first 6 games, the Giants absolutely have to win one of these home games, and you must beat Arizona. Anything less than a 2-4 record after week 6 and the season is over. You can split the next 2 games against Washington and the Jets, but then you have to win 2 out of the 3 on the road, or you can win one of those games and beat New England week 12. If you followed my math, I got you to 5 wins going into the bye. After the bye week, you have to figure out if the Giants can go 3 or 2 or not. Personally, I think 8 wins is right about there, but I want to note that this team is better than the 9-7-1 team from 2022. My betting recommendation is to take the under. Yes, talent-wise, this is better than an 8-win team, but when I look at the schedule, I just don't see it happening. Now, all of my NFL previews are listed on this playlist, and tomorrow I preview the Dallas Cowboys, so I hope to see you back tomorrow.